Hi everyone, and welcome to section 4B review. Really quickly, in case you didn't see the note in the last video, set your lifespan to 15 on the decal. I mean, you don't have to have a lifespan. It could be infinite, but that's what I'm doing. I'm setting it to 15. This will be the second time I'm making this note. I made one text note in the last video, the note here, but I know some people skip those review videos, so I'm also going to make the same note in the first video of section C. All right, all of that said, what did we do in this section? Well, we created our landscape material, we imported our island, we added sound cues for when we walk, and we put, well, footprints that I just kind of made a comment on into our world. Let's start with our material, since we spent most of our time. We have our ground material, and we created a main material of which we have an instance. Let's open this up. We have in here our material node, which is a material attribute, and we're using multiple layers that are a height blend. So we have rock, dirt, grass. As I mentioned in this video, we'll technically have a second grass. I won't use it. I'm just going to show you what you could do. Mud and sand layers. Going into each of these layers, we have the world positions. One is for our general tiling, and one is for our tessellation. We're excluding the material offsets for the tessellation ones. Across all of these, we have a world tiling parameter, which we don't change anywhere. We do default that out to 1. Every layer, but our rock layer is about the same. The grass has one minor difference than all the other layers, but we'll just touch on that in a moment. So our rock layer, let's go there for a moment. Our rock layer is a bit different than our other layers, in that we, in our rock layer, use the material, the diffuse material, the roughness materials, all the textures for it. Sorry, I said materials, I meant textures. All the textures for it twice. Why do we do that? Well, we change the tiling of these. We have one for far tiling and one for near tiling. And we lerp between the tiling based on where the camera is positioned. So all we're doing is we're taking our diffuses, lerping between them, then applying a randomizer to it, which we'll talk about in a moment as well, and that becomes our base color. Same for our roughness and our normals minus a randomizer. That is all based on lerping between two values. So how does that lerp work? Well, we take our pixel depth, so the pixel that's being rendered on screen right now, and we use an offset to control for which one we're seeing, or how far away we can see. So that's our control for that down there, those two input nodes, which if we go back here, we have defined as parameters here. All right, so that's how we lerp between them. And our tessellation, we set up in the last section, so we're not going to go over that for the multiplier. But the way we do tessellation for all of our materials are the same, regardless of if this one's rock. Regardless of if it's rock or grass, which are the two sort of unique ones. All we do is we take our tiling, we put that into a displacement texture, and then we multiply that by the amount we want to tessellate by. So this is our overall tessellation. We control the edges of our tessellation to clean it up a bit by dividing our tessellation amount by 2 and subtracting from that value, return value, that division, from our multiply of our tessellation amount and our displacement. So if we were to open this up for just a moment, you can see how it's really washed out there. It's really white. We open this one up, and it's really black. That's how we're controlling that difference. All right, we then do a further control, and this really is so that our tessellation numbers don't have to be very, very small, like 0.0002 small. I think I have enough zeros in there. 0.0002. Yeah, it's 3 zeros. Is it? No, it's 4 zeros. So 0.00002 would be the equivalent to what we have here if we didn't have this. So this allows us for use just numbers that are easier to wrap our heads around, that don't have to worry about float precision. That's all this is doing. We then also control for it further by controlling by how much we're multiplying by the vertex normal, and the size of the thing that we're applying this to. So that is our tessellation. That's our pixel fade. Talked about the rock. Let's very quickly talk about our randomizer. All we're doing is taking a macro noise variant texture 3 times and changing our UV variation. So we're tiling it differently 3 times. We're adding those or multiplying those 3 times together to create a variant that's applied on top of our material. So you can see our material there, and then you can see the variations that are being applied on top of it there. If you go back to our map, I'm trying to find an example of this there, right there. That is one of those variations. That's one of the macros that we're looking at, or macro variation that we're looking at. You can see a bit more over there. It is visible on the rock up here, but the shadowing makes it a little bit harder to see. I know there's one right there. Oh, there's one right there as an example on the rock, and there's some right there, and some right there, and some there. And we're doing that to break up the tiling. All right, let's go back to our landscape. Our dirt layer and all the other layers outside of the grass, which only has one difference to everything else, just use one texture set. We're not lerping between different tilings because these are going to be more obscured. They're going to be less visible at a distance. There's going to be foliage on top of them, a whole bunch of other things to break up the tiling. So all we're doing again is just using our texture samples. We are setting these as parameters so we can change them later on. For our roughness, we take a roughness texture and lerp between a max and min. It's all the same for all of them except for our grass. In which case, in our grass, we haven't made any changes to this, don't save. In our grass, the only difference is our specular. We actually have a specular material that we plug in. And this is really useful for the grass because the grass material has both the dirt and the leaves, and they will have different speculars. So this makes it really nice to be able to do that. And you can't really tell that all we're doing is saying the black spot is 0. Leave it at 0. And the lighter spots can go up to 1. If it's white, it's 1. Basically, in other words, if you take a look at this image here, let's just go over to it, where there's this darkness, that stays at 0. And as we get closer to white, we get closer to 1 because we're moving towards our max there. And that's where we want to be more specular. We want to have that reflection. So this texture coming with a specular map makes it really useful because otherwise it's going to look a bit off because the dirt and the grass would have the same, or leaves would have the same specular values. We will be changing the color of this in the next section though, just as a heads up. All right, let's see. Now don't make any saves. So that covers our landscape. We then imported our map, which we do have some LED issues on. But like I said, we will take care of that in the next subsection. And really quickly, I don't tend to do this on video, but yeah, that should be a rock. There we go. What we'll do is we will go through and resize this map so that it is sized properly. There is a bit of a size issue, which is why we have those LED stuff going on for something that's so close. And we'll talk about how to resize based on FPS and optimizing our map. In addition, we'll add the foliage and other stuff in. But anyway, before I get into that, the other thing we did was we added in sound effects. So we now have footsteps. And so we have 5 different materials we can walk on: dirt, grass, mud, rock, sand, with each of these having 6 different footstep sounds. They aren't the best, I realize. They are free. If you want better ones, either you have to have your own access to the recording equipment or purchase sound effects. I can't give you ones I purchased. There's copyright laws in place there. But I can give you free ones, and I can edit the free ones to cut them up for us, which is what I did. And we're switching between, based on what surface we're on, what sound effect we play. We then change the volume based on how fast we're moving, and based on just, constantly changing it just a bit so there's some variety there. All right. Outside of that, we then call that up in our animations by using and notifies on our walk and run. Where the foot comes down, or a little bit before the foot comes down, we trigger a footstep notify, which sends a line trace off, going from the pelvis of the character 500 units down. We make sure we hit something. If we have, then we we spawn a sound emitter. If there is a material on what we've hit, we'll play a sound. Because notice in our emitter that we have 2 that are left blank. That is unset and 0. We could actually plug a default into unset. If something hasn't come through that we know, then play that sound, and you might want to use dirt for that. Or you can also use that for 0 for default as well. I don't like doing that just so I can see if there's errors. But we find in a list that matches the order on here of 1 to 5. So 1 is dirt, 2 is grass, 3 is mud, 4 is rock, 5 is sand. 1 is dirt, 2 is grass, 3 is mud, 4 is rock, 5 is sand. Again, we find what we've hit in this list and tell it that's the integer based on this index that I want you to play here. We then get the character's speed and change the volume, which is this node here, based on how fast the character is moving. Then we play the sound. We check, are we not walking on rock? If we're not walking on rock, then we spawn a footprint. We know the right foot comes down first, so we do is right, true on A. If it's B, that's false. We spawn the footprint. We spawn the location off to the left off to the right or left, based on if it's the right foot or not. And we then, sorry, I was just double checking something. We then rotate the footprint to spawn, or not then, we rotate the spawn of the footprint to face the direction the character is facing. We then switch it between our left foot and our right foot. So that is what we did in this subsection. In the next subsection, we'll be adding in our foliage, doing our lighting, updating to Unreal 4.23, which will actually be the first video of the next section instead of halfway through like I had originally done. And that's just because the update's due to there's a feature that I want to show you that isn't available in 4.22. It also, actually there's 2 features I want to show you. So we'll take care of that right away. All right, all of that said, congratulations on making it this far, and I look forward to seeing you in subsection 3 or section C of section 4, or subsection C of section 4 of this tutorial series, and hope that you have a wonderful day.